and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies. Attorney Nathaniel Lee, a lawyer with credibility, success, and experience, representing people in hundreds of jury trials, Nathaniel Lee is who you want by your side in the courtroom. You've seen the rest, now hire the best. Contact Lee, Cosell, and Feigley today. And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning, everyone. This is Attorney Nathaniel Lee. Thank you for joining our show. Thank you for the people down in Florida, Georgia, Chicago, Indianapolis. Thank you so much for supporting our show each week. Today, we're in the middle of a war, and I have a superstar that a lot of people don't know about. He was a lieutenant colonel in the military, and then he retired as a full-board colonel, Stan Willisley. And the reason I have him on today is that I have an expert on ground operation. Back between in 1991, he was part of the most decisive operation by the military in American history. Stan led the battalions of tanks that liberated Kuwait from Iraq occupation within 100 hours. It was a ground combat operation. It followed a 38-day air campaign, but it was the most decisive that we've ever seen. We were watching this in amazement back in 1991. I remember just seeing, little did I know that the person that was leading that major operation was African American. Stan got his MBA, of course, super smart guy from USC, one of those top type university. And so I'm just a pleasure to have him today. Colonel, he's retired now, but how are you doing today, sir?
Good, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're in another war, and first, you led the most successful operation I'd ever seen in American history in terms of the liberation of Kuwait. But just give us a quick summary of how difficult it is to organize such a massive level of force you did. And then now we're talking about potentially doing a ground operation again. So how did you guys go about organizing that? And why would it be relevant today?
Yeah, and that was a desert operation, as it would be in Iran. But, it takes a huge commitment to actually pull that off. And what I mean by that, first, you have to have the strategic plan and the strategic objective of our administration. And from there, that mission is given to the military to accomplish it on the ground. And usually, we try to have overwhelming odds to have an offensive operation. And that just takes lots of time. If you move a tank battalion, which is 58 tanks, from anywhere in the United States or even in Europe to Asia or Africa or the Middle East, that takes weeks and weeks of preparation because you have to get all the equipment there. It's a logistic nightmare. And it has to be well coordinated with all the countries that you will be helping and supporting, because they have to support a ground invasion or a ground force, because you have to have the host nation support for fuel, ammunition, and all the other logistics that you need to sustain yourself. So it's a huge undertaking that takes lots of time. The ground war just don't happen overnight.
Well, you have to have skilled military officers who actually know how to plan these things, sound like to me.
Yes, and I'll just say, in this administration, they have pretty much taken the military off of the front page and put them in the background. So I'm not sure, at least from my contacts that I talk to all the time in DC, that we have intimate involvement in the decision-making process.
Well, I was concerned about that because ultimately, you're dropping bombs, and when you drop bombs, for example, sometimes you hit secondary targets such as schools. So we have about 200 school kids that are murdered inadvertently, of course, but it's not something that's going to make the people there revolt and get on your side. You start murdering their citizens. And so ultimately, it seemed like to me that in order to successfully get rid of the bad guys they're trying to get rid of, you're going to have to eventually put some troops on the ground. And that requires to have people like with your expertise with tanks and heavy ammunition in order to go out there and fight a combat in their zones.
Yes. And if you're going to do that, what I've seen from this administration is right now there is no clear-cut strategic objective from our administration. I think the goalposts move daily of why we even started bombing them. And so I am still looking for what is the administration's strategic objective and how will we, the American people, know when that's accomplished. That has not been clearly defined at all. And that's a major, major, not only concern, but worry of mine.
Okay, assuming that you, first of all, who was the general who was at the Department of Defense that no longer there? What happened to the African Americans? Because I know we had the chief of staff, that gentleman had an outstanding military record, and they let him go. And but did they get rid of a lot of the top generals, African Americans, at the Pentagon?
Yes, when the Trump administration got elected and came in, and Pete Hegseth became the Secretary of Defense. And from what I understand of my contacts in the Pentagon and the State Department, and from the readings that you see in the news, they have purged the majority of the 3- and 4-star Black generals. And some of the rationale have been they were DEI hires, the same thing on the women officers, especially generals. They have been purged because of what the administration says. DEI hires, it should be based strictly on merit. And so they have purged. Even CQ Brown was his name, 4-star general, was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, got fired right away. And that was, in my opinion, not of merit or his work, but strictly racial.
Well, it's kind of sad because I don't think people realize how difficult it is for people like yourself to be elevated to full board colonel. You know, there's all kind of evaluation and testing and interviews and also job performance. It's a very tough process. And but what I don't understand is that we put a guy over the Department of Defense, Pete, head case guy, uh, you know, because I call him head case because it seemed like this guy borderline nut case, TV person. Did he ever actually lead soldiers in battle? Where did this guy come from? I don't
No, he is.
understand.
He was in the military, and I can't remember how long he was there, but he's never commanded like a battalion or a brigade or a division or any of that. He was, a low-level officer that didn't have the great jobs because he wasn't in there long enough. I think he got out when he was a captain or a major, but he never commanded what we call the hardcore units. And as you know, never went to combat. I don't know if he went to combat or not, but he's never commanded soldiers. And now he is in charge of our entire military, which is still the best and the strongest in the world.
Well, it says that he was commissioned and he born in 1980, and in 2003 he was commissioned as an infantry officer in the U.S. Army National Guard, serving in various deployments, including Iraq and Afghanistan. But he also became a TV personality. So he it doesn't show him fighting in combat or anything.
Yeah, now that it doesn't, at least from what you read, it doesn't show that he commanded anything, that he was in charge of soldiers and getting a mission accomplished.
Well, he's saying second lieutenant though, so that's a beginning stage for an officer when you go to college and you come out as second lieutenant instead of a private first class. So, when I was in the military, when we were in training, I actually was ahead of the person who was going to be a second lieutenant, and I was
Mhm.
enlisted. Well, we were subject to the
Yes,
draft back then. But the point is that they don't really have any real power in the military
true.
system.
Yes. And you
And
don't get power even at the lower levels till you become a commander. And that's either as a captain, company commander, lieutenant colonel, battalion commander, full colonel, brigade commander, and once you make general, start commanding division and corps. Yeah, that's where the decision making is made, and that's where the real power and how you actually go win wars is at those levels.
okay, assuming at some point they have a plan to try to successfully end the war by taking out the people that they really want to get taken out instead of schoolgirls and boys, right? So you have to have ground troop. So how do you go about, for example, how difficult would it be to get those tanks and the foot shows on the ground to go in to take out the people they're really trying to eliminate versus innocent civilians?
It is extremely difficult. If you're going to move heavy units, which means tanks and infantry, if you're going to move those to prepare for a ground war, right now we have to move those from the U.S., continental U.S. We don't have combat units in Europe anymore. I think we have one brigade that's in Poland. But even when we were in Germany, moving from Germany to Saudi Arabia, it took our tanks 3 weeks to get there because they went by ship. And it's easy to get the soldiers there because you can fly them in, but to get the logistics and the equipment, that is a huge, like I said before, a huge, huge undertaking. And it will take uh, weeks and months to get a ground force big enough to accomplish the mission, which we don't have any idea what these, like I keep saying, what the strategic mission is from the president and this administration. There is no clear-cut strategic plan of what he wants to get done over there.
Well, but
Yeah.
there's another thing that I thought was an oddity. When you did Desert Storm, it was Desert Storm, right?
Yes.
Well, then you have cooperation with a lot of allies from other countries. Do we have that in this situation? It seems
Yeah,
like it's
not
going
sure
on.
if we do. This is still in Iran, where they are, extremist Islamic. Not sure about the corporation around. I'm not sure the effect that this bombing's having on our allies. And when Iran is now, shooting missiles, in Saudi Arabia and Cyprus and Lebanon and all the other countries. Um, Not sure the cooperation we're going to get because a ground force that's big, you have to have host nation support. And I don't know where in that part of the world with Iran, where that's going to come from. And I'm not sure of the commitment of our allies around that region. This is difficult.
Well, one thing I noticed that I had not seen in a long time, I saw where the United States has taken out more than 30 of their ships. And I was looking at some historical information. It's been a long time since we started sinking ships because when you were doing the uh, Desert Storm, I don't think that you guys were out there bombing the ships. So I don't remember that part. I just saw the extravagant tank brigade kicking butt, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
and yeah, but
it
the
seemed like your tanks, when I was watching on TV, looked like your tanks was doing about 60 miles an hour. How fast
and
were your
that
tanks
M1
traveling?
tank is capable of doing, yeah, about 50, 55 miles an hour. But
Whoa.
in Desert Storm, there was a clear strategic objective. I knew even as at a battalion level with 58 tanks that my mission was to move, engage, and destroy the Republican Guards army that I was going to face. And this administration has got to put that out in a ground war. The objectives have to be clear. And we have to have an end game of when and what criteria those objectives have been satisfied. We can't even get that with the bombing of things. So right now, and I keep saying it, there is no clear-cut objectives of what the administration is trying to get done. And so my fear is if you have a ground war and you commit all of this equipment, all of these men and women, and what is the goal? What is the objective? And the administration hadn't said that.
Okay, here's a big issue that hit us this week. It's going to hit everybody in their pocketbook. The Strait of Hormuz is basically that was taking 50 to 60 ship with tankers and oil is down to 1 or 2 or 3 per day now, which means that the price of gas was going to escalate. Here in India, I went to get gas yesterday, and I didn't check the price until I got to the gas station. I started pumping it. It was like $3.99. The last time I filled up, it was like $2.39. I said, that's $1.60 more per gallon. Now, I probably selected the wrong gas station, and I learned. Now you have to shop around, but my goodness, it was so cheap a couple of weeks ago until it didn't matter. All less than $2.50. Now, you're looking at $4 a gallon.
Yes.
And for premium, it was like $4.79. I said it's going to hit $5. So tell me about that. How difficult is you're a military guy, retired, but how difficult it is to protect ships going through the Straits of Hormuz?
Yeah, and I don't know. I heard President Trump say we're going to start escorting ships through the strait. Whoa. Yeah, and I don't know the particulars about that or how the Navy would do that. But we have, over half of the Navy in the Middle East now. And so I don't know if this administration has thought through or is overly concerned about the long-term implications of the Strait of Hormuz. That is a tough choke point. And not only oil, but supplies and things coming out of the Middle East to the rest of the Western world. It's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. I don't know.
Well, but what I was concerned about, what I was concerned about is that the width of the Strait of Hormuz is between 21 to 52 miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a narrow waterway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not playing to. I was thinking about that. All kind of weapons can go, 21 to 52 miles. You got those drones and stuff like that. I was trying to think.
Yes.
They don't really need to have ships to bomb people at that distance, do they?
No, not at all. Drones in this new world of war is devastating, and they're unmanned. But my concern is once you get into that narrow strait, they become awful vulnerable. And so my concern really is how do you protect the force? And like I said, the president says he's going to start protecting other ships as they come through. Risk. So we'll see how that works if he doesn't.
So tell me this issue here. So if we do a ground warfare and if they capture American soldier, what protections would they have? If you're captured in battle, how does that process work?
We're supposed to, all countries, and that's not true, but it's supposed to be, go by the Geneva Convention. And I'm not sure Iran, being extreme Islamic, is going to abide by, the codage for the Geneva Convention and how we treat captives or soldiers that are lost. We've seen other wars where soldiers are dragged through the towns and beheaded. And so I'm not sure from a military standpoint how that code of conduct with the Geneva Convention will be enforced or abide by. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that. Yeah.
Well, I was concerned because I've watched in horror when we start bombing the Venezuelan boats, right? And I've never seen that before by American military. I watched the one scene where the boat got bombed and people were still alive. Then we went back and killed guys in the sea. I mean, I've never seen that done by the American military before. I thought that was just outright murder. I was thinking, what are we doing? I mean, so
Yes.
we're
And I'm
doing
not
that
sure
now.
I'm not sure if we're getting a straight story from our administration. And they keep saying it's all drug related, but they have not ever, at least from my knowledge, come and said, this is the proof. This is the proof. And so we are, attacking these boats and killing these people, but we have not seen any proof of the mission of saying drug interdiction and killing these folks. But I have not seen any proof of that. But as the military, we do as the civilian leadership tells us. We put together the military plan, but the objective are done by the administration, and we carry out the objectives from a military standpoint.
How much based on your military background, how much do we pay per day for these type of wars? I mean, it seemed like I'm looking at all these equipment. I saw the 3 jets get shot down. Aren't we paying out a substantial sum of money? And where the hell are we going to get the money from to pay for this war?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Yes. And even from my experience and at my level, at a lower combat level, and I'm going to talk about the ground war just for a minute. To move a 58 tanks and 500 men in a tank battalion, it cost about $1.4 million a mile.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I've seen some estimates says even our short excursion into Venezuela to take out the leader, and that was over $1.8 billion. Don't know if that's the truth or not, but that's a couple of estimates that I've read.
This is incredible. So this war going to be costing us sound like a couple $1 billion per day. When I looked at the ships and jet, I'm just doing it in my head. I said, that's got to be at least $2 billion. So
could very well be.
Where do they get the money to pay for this? I mean,
well,
it's going to be a bigger deficit.
It's out of the Department of Defense budget.
Does the Department of Defense put in their budget that we're going to have a freaking war about every month?
Yeah, I don't know, but that's where the money comes from.
Now, wait a second. I've kind of lost track of this. It seems like to me that this is, let me see, how many wars we've been in the last 14 months? Because, wait a second. Then I remember I was looking at the internet and said we got 8 wars, but then it seemed like last year we had bombed Iran and said we took out the nuclear capability. Did I?
Oh, yes. That was in June of last year. And the president announced that their nuclear facilities and program was annihilated. And now 8 months later, he came on and said, they could attack the American mainland anytime now or very soon. Somewhere there is a huge disconnect. And I won't say outright lie, but somewhere the truth is not being told. We either didn't take out all of their facilities, or we're lying now saying that they're that close to having a nuclear weapon that can reach the U.S. mainland, and especially in other parts of the Middle East with their nuclear program. So I don't know or believe what the administration says.
Well, my concern, though, is that, as a trial lawyer, when I saw them bombing the ships in Venezuela, and I'm thinking, those little boats would never be able to make it in the United States. They run out of gas about 20 times, And so, but there was a bigger issue. In American legal system, we have what is called due process of law. And so if these people were drug dealers, they'll get between 0 to 20 years in prison for their offense in the typical situation, because they didn't murder anybody, that we had seen. So if they're transporting drugs, and the administration pardoned a number of people that were drug dealers. So if you get a jail sentence, when does it become accepted practice to just murder people without giving them a right of due process? And that's what I was concerned about. So now we're into war number 8, and we say that this attack is necessary because this country is going to attack America. I've not seen any evidence, Colonel, yet to suggest or show that we had a legitimate basis for this attack.
That is true. That is true. But from the military standpoint, we're going to do what we're told by our civilian leadership, long as it's not unethical or illegal. Yep. So those generals are going to do what they're told.
Well, I noticed that when we were doing the Venezuela thing, there was an African-American general or something that resigned. I saw that one story, and
yes, yeah, that was, I think, it might have been not sure, but I remember reading that, and that article, he said that he just did not agree with the administration's objectives and goals, what they were trying to get done. And I don't know if it was unethical or he thought it was illegal, but in his case, he thought it was not right. And so instead of doing it, he resigned, which is the right thing to do.
And then we saw that we had some high-profile politician articulate that soldiers should not follow and should not obey an illegal order. And we saw the big controversy. I saw that the senator from Arizona, the court, I think, ruled in his favor, but I just thought that it was such a bizarre thing that you thought that it would be punish somebody by saying that our troops can't do illegal activity. I remember we did like Vietnam, and they had prosecution of soldiers for engaging in misconduct.
That is true. That is true.
And I mean, and that's what I don't understand. It's almost like we've lost our sense of value in our country when we start becoming barbaric by just murdering people indiscriminately. I have a problem with that.
Yes.
Now, going forward, have you seen any coherent strategy in terms of how we actually fight this war? I saw that we're dropping 3,000 bombs already, and so, I mean, where are we headed? Where do you see this thing ending?
Oh, I don't know. And I don't think, personally, I don't think the administration knows, because they keep, and I keep saying this, they have not, the president or the secretary of defense has not put out what our clear goals and objectives are. What is the end game? And how do we know we have gotten there? I hear, no, we're not going to redo regime change. No, we're not going to do nation building. We want to stop their nuclear program. I hear all of these, but nothing clear and concise that says this is the purpose and this is why we're doing this, and this is the end game to make it all happen. Haven't heard that from our administration yet. And that is, from what I understand, that some of my contacts, especially the Department of Defense, is extremely frustrating to the military. So how do you do your mission when you really don't know what it is yet?
Well, when normally, if we have a normal presidency with the skilled military officers that we come to enjoy their outstanding work, how would they, from a normal standpoint, have planned this out and what should be occurring?
Yeah, the military is going to take the administration's goals and objectives, and then they put that into the military strategy, how to go and accomplish that. Then they will go to the Secretary of Defense and the President and says, this is the manpower, troops, and units, and the type of units that we need to accomplish that mission. But I don't think, at least talking to everyone, they haven't got that guidance yet.
Well, is one of the problems is that a lot of these really skilled military officers, they're gone?
Yes, but it's still, especially in the military, because we have a chain of command and it's next man up. So I'm not concerned about other officers taking up the mantle and moving forward, getting the mission accomplished. So that's going to be okay. I just worry about what is the mission.
Yeah, I was concerned because they were talking about taking out the Iran leadership, but then I saw that they already got a new. Do they have a new president already, or?
Yeah, from what I've read, they have a guy. I think it's the Kamali's son that I guess is stepped in the power vacuum now, but hasn't officially been recognized, or however they do it in Iran, as becoming the next Ayatollah. So I don't know, but we'll see how that unfolds. And I heard President Trump says he has his own ideas of who should step up and be the leader next. So I don't know what influence or how that's all going to happen from a top level strategic point of view. Don't know yet.
Okay, so when the war started, when they retaliated, we lost 6 American heroes in the initial stage. How does that process work when soldiers are killed in battle? What typically occurs, and why would they have some reticence about releasing their names initially?
Yeah, from this administration, I don't know. I don't know that from this administration. Don't know.
Well, how does it normally should work in a normal administration?
Yeah, and the military will take that through the military channels about who's killed in action, notify families, get all their personal affairs in order and do that. And that information is really, through the military chain. And it will, get, depending on your civilian leadership, how that actually gets put in public, because that's up to our civilian leaders. Yeah, because they're the ones that are going to announce that, not the military.
Now, there was an issue that came up this week that got my attention also about this war, and because some people are saying that this could end up being World War III, because now 18 countries was affected by this. God knows. I hope that's not true. But I was concerned about the war spreading to other countries, and I don't see where we have a coalition of allies that are actually on our side. I see Israeli is pushing this, but I don't see the other countries like Germany, France.
That's true. That is true. There are the Europeans, everyone is divided on our administration's attack of Iran. The countries that I've seen, everyone is divided. So I don't know. But one thing I want to say is I urge your listeners to write their congressmen and senators and tell them to demand from the administration what are the goals and objectives of this war. What are the clear goals and strategic goals and objectives? And how do we know when we have met those objectives? And I think our Congress and Senate has got to get involved and press the president to come up with what is the clear-cut objectives here. This hasn't been done. That frustrates me to death.
Well, see, one of my concern is that if you don't have goals and objectives, we have an endless war. When we get done bombing this country, the next we say we want to bomb Cuba. I'm thinking, what the heck? This is, but this is another part I don't understand. The war powers, normally Congress control the budget. Congress must pass legislation to determine how much funding that the military get. If Congress has control of the budget and they control funding, that indirectly finance this type of activity. So if you don't have the money in the budget, you don't have the money to buy the bombs, the aircraft, and salaries and things like that. So I was concerned about the fact that if you have a military budget, and I don't think in American history that we've had this many wars by any single president in this short of a period of time. I just don't remember that.
True. That is true. That is true. And he is supposed to be the president of peace. Yes. But I think, as I, tried to monitor this, we don't have a Congress that has upheld their portion of the Constitution. They have advocated all of their power to the president. And so they are not, in my opinion, a functioning organization when it comes to controlling this administration.
Well, okay. Now moving forward, just for my own edification, it's something that I thought this was unique. These tanks, I want to get back to this real quickly. How much fuel do they use? I was just curious.
Oh, they get about a half a mile a gallon. It's the tank engine is a 1,500 horsepower turbo diesel engine. It will get up and run fast, but it sucks down the fuel.
Yeah. And so those tanks can go about 140, 150 miles.
Yeah.
And so if you're in battle, if we have to do a ground warfare, how do we refuel these tanks if we get into that part of the process?
That's a good question, especially if we're in Iran, and they'll have to come up with a lot of support from different countries. In Desert Storm, we had Saudi Arabia, who provided all of that fuel for us. And so a tank battalion of 58 tanks is going to carry its own fuel trucks, but that's only enough to top off or refuel the tanks for about one time. And like I said, these tanks will get up in the desert especially and run 50, 55 miles an hour. And they get about a half a mile a gallon. And I remember in Desert Storm, we were on the move the first day. We were actually running out of fuel. And we had the host nation from Saudi Arabia gave the military 5,000 gallon tankers. And I had in the front line 5,000 gallon tankers refueling my tanks. How do you get that in this next war? They got to figure that out if you have a ground war. Because, those tanks and Bradley vehicles suck down fuel. Not only that, you got resupply of ammunition, resupply of repair parts, food, everything. So the logistics is a nightmare.
But how long does it take to refuel those tanks?
Oh, if it's in the red and you got to put about 300 gallons in, it takes about, a good fuel truck, about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the phone. Carl, you have a question or comment for us today. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Attorney Lee. Good morning, Mr. Stanley. I have a question. One of the questions is, I have questions. How do you think for Mr. Stanley, how do you think we get out of this? And then two, what do you think the odds are of attacking Cuba?
Oh, man.
How do we get out of this? I don't know. And I keep saying that because the administration has not set clear goals and objectives. I don't understand, or I don't know if they understand or know what the objectives are yet. And like I've had people tell me, in the Pentagon, they're flying by the seat of their pants. Well, that may be one of the reasons we don't have goals and objectives. And so Cuba, I've heard the Secretary of State talk about some of that they may be next and we want to take Cuba down. I don't know. This administration is terrible about telling the American people what their goals are in all of these countries. Yeah, and this is me talking, just me. I don't believe a lot of things that come out of this administration. So I'm very leery about our president saying I'm the president of peace and hasn't shown that.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Stanley. I trust nothing coming out of this White House. Absolutely nothing. I will probably listen to BBC or other countries, reporting on this before I believe anything that this White House released. I call them a regime too. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, we have another caller. Call, you have a question coming for us today. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Guy. Nate, I can understand the guess in terms of not knowing what's involved, because it looks like, from outside looking in, it looks like Netanyahu of Israel, Prime Minister of Israel, has basically, they've been grooming Donald Trump for a while in terms of hitting Iran, and it seems like they've been successful at this point. Now, I can understand Israel because they've been threatened by Iran for all these years, and it seems to me that the United States has been drawn into what might be a quagmire. What does your guest think about this?
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly. And the reason I agree with you is because I keep stating over and over and over, there is no strategic goals and objectives that the president and the Secretary of Defense has said they want to accomplish. I still don't know what they want to accomplish. So if you don't know what you want to accomplish, how do you know when you've gotten to the end game? And that's how you end up in quagmires and in long wars. If you don't have goals and objectives and know when you reach them. And that has not been articulated by this administration.
And the thing, for instance, I understand now the Prime Minister of Spain has refused the United States rights to
access to their bases.
Yeah, and France is probably right behind them because Donald Trump, and all of his so-called wisdom, he has dealt with our so-called allies in a disrespectful manner, in my opinion. And, this has consequences. And I know in one of his speeches recently, he talked about his allies, but who are his allies? And, if you can't count, if you disrespect your allies, it's like a fairy tale,
Yeah.
So,
yes. And,
I think
I've had people in the administration, in the Department of Defense, tell me the joke that goes around is America first, America alone.
Yeah. And what we have, it seems to me, you have these amateurs who think they know how to run the world, and they don't. And
True.
So that's a problem.
True.
And so I what you do, I mean, in terms of like biblical prophecy, for instance, it's in the Bible that in the end game, this is what's going to happen. I think it's Ezekiel. It says, the Most High says, I'll have a hook in the jar, and it's called oil. And that's a big hook. That's a big hook.
Yes.
And that's so. I guess we just gotta stay tuned.
Yes, and I'll say it again. All the listeners out there, write your congressmen and senators and make them press this administration for clear goals and objectives of this war in Iran, so that we, the American people, know what they're trying to get accomplished. And right now it's just scattered all over, and the goalposts change every message.
And this is kind of an amateur set of moves, it seems to me. Like I said, you have these amateurs think they can run things. I mean, looks like we have Beetle Bailey at the top in terms of
yes, and in my opinion, this cabinet that he has put together is based on 100% loyalty and not competence.
And what are his qualifications? He didn't even go to war.
Yeah,
incredible.
I think, Colonel, I think that's part of the problem, because if you don't have experience of the ultimate sacrifice for your country, and so you don't see the pain and suffering that inflicted upon people. I mean, each of those families that lost their friend, their brother, their sister, their husband, their wife, whatever, that's going to carry them the rest of their life. The sting of that, it hurts. And we tend to forget about the significant sacrifice that our troops are undergoing now, being in a foreign land. And every time, even though you're in a jet, if you get shot down, you point out we don't have any protection. If you captured, they're going to torture you till you die. So we're in uncharted territories now. And I don't think most people realize the significant sacrifice you make in the military. You're away from your families for lengthy periods of time. And every one of those family members that got a soldier over there, they don't know whether or not they're going to ever come back home again.
Yes, true. And from a soldier standpoint, I'm sure all your listeners that have been in the military, we want clear objectives of what our mission is. Then we want the support. Then let us go do it. We understand the risk. We understand, all of the disadvantages that goes with being in the military, and that's okay. But what we need is the support. And and the president has said, military folks are losers and suckers. Only reason McCain became popular because he got captured, and that's no hero to him. This man is not pro-military. He is not pro-military. It is another.
He's pro-Trump.
Yeah, Trump only, Trump first, and Trump only. So I don't think he has a lot of esteem or respect for our military that he should as being the commander in chief. It's kind of sad.
Hey, Guy, here's a problem. A lot of people are saying that this is a gigantic distraction. When they produce a photograph of the current president with a 13-year-old child, and the news really tightened. There's no statute of limitation for these rape cases, and it goes under state law or federal law. Now, we got R. Kelly's in prison for doing something like that. P. Diddy was involved in some sexual tirade, and he's in prison. And so I think P. Diddy was dealing with adults for the most part, but then now we got the president of the United States. They produce a photograph, and the next thing you know, we're in a war. So
yes,
I don't know whether or not there's any correlation between the two, but it sure seemed kind of fishy to me that the Epstein thing, we're not talking about that now. It's one of the most egregious things in American history, and it's become third-page news.
And I think that's one of the goals of the administration.
Well, one of his books, so-called, that he's very fond of is by P.T. Barnum, and it says the sucker is born every minute and two to take him. So this is part of his philosophy, and he is good at dazzling folks, and that's what he's doing.
Yep.
Well, look, thinking now, let's go on to one other topic. Today, they're doing a final service for the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Let's just talk about some of the things he did. He was a civil rights activist. He was a protege of Martin Luther King Jr. and became a key figure in the civil rights movement. He was president during the King assassination in 1968 and played a vital role in organized marches and protests for racial equality. Um, that's very important because even in today's climate, we're dealing with the same issue of racial inequality, and we're going along that path again. In 1971, he founded Operation Push, and this was that was People United to Save Humanity, which aimed to promote economic development and job opportunity for Blacks. In 1984, he started the Rainbow Coalition, which later merged with Operation Push, advocating social justice and civil rights. He ran for president twice in 1984 and 1988, and his campaign were groundbreaking as he was the first African American to gain significant traction in the presidential race. And this changed the Democratic Party because now it gave the opportunity for other minority to compete because you did delegates based on votes in each state, and it made it a fair process. And that's how eventually President Barack Obama won the Democratic nomination and ultimate president. He dealt with international diplomacy. He was involved in the international diplomacy involved in the release of the American hostage in Syria in 1984 and Cuba in 1986. His effort in those negotiations was significant. And he's gotten a number of awards during his career. He was an American hero. And because of the things that he did in civil rights, it created opportunity for many of us. Now we see those same rights that we fought for in the 60s being abrogated. And we see it, first they say they do a attack on, quote, DEI. And now we see an administration, for example, that clearly hired people that do not have the skill set for the job. Starting with our Department of Defense, they call it Department of War. You know, we have a person that's totally unqualified to lead this important agency. And you can go through each of the departments, but what's troublesome to me, Colonel, is the fact that he was dumb enough, forget about all these dumb leakage he did on secured lines, but what about this issue of him having all these military officers from all over the world come to a meeting in DC? I mean, it gotta be the dumbest military thing I've ever seen.
Yes, and I think that was just based on a couple of things. Number one, the Secretary of Department of Defense was egoing. I want to let you all know, I don't care what you think about me, because I get comments from like I said, my contacts in Department of Defense that think he's a joke. But that was to let them, especially the generals and the public, know I'm in charge. These generals work for me. And a lot of that would just show. And this Department of the War, and now he says it's a transition from defense to we want to be more on the offense. And we're about war, not about defense, and offense, not about defense. But to me, it's a matter of all show. All show. Absolutely. Is ego and putting the generals in their place.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, Guy, I saw this week that Kristen Noem out watching this horrible display of theft and deception when they were talking about, you know, she gave contract to somebody to form a company a few days before and $143 million contract for ads. And I saw that all these things they had done, you know, you were killing people, you're taking children into custody. And then the one thing they say she said that made her get fired was the fact that she said that the president had authorized this company.
Yeah, he had approved it.
Yeah, had approved it. And I just started laughing. I'm thinking, I think that Trump say, are you out of your freaking mind? You're going to give these people a contract as a non-existent corporation 2 weeks earlier and think that people can't think that that's got to be overt corruption? You know, one quick point, when you're in the military, they go by buying goods. My sister actually headed up purchasing for like border patrol people, right? And it was they had all kinds of security, they had all kind of process in order for before they bought anything from the military contractors.
Yes.
And it's a very in-depth process.
Mhm.
When you were in the military, how involved are the soldiers in terms of acquisition of supplies?
At my level, not at all. They come to us. We tell the higher up of the chain of command what we need, and it appears. And so the process, I don't know. That's a procurement process, and I really don't know how that happens above me as a war fighter at a battalion or brigade level. Yeah, so I can't really answer that one. I know we have competitive bidding and all of that. That's just for me taking classes at the graduate level about how the procurement process works in the military. But I never got involved in that. My job was to make sure I had what I needed and to beat up my boss and everybody else to make sure I got it. And so I was not a part of the procurement process of it.
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our callers today and retired Colonel Stan Willisley for giving us his insight. We got a true American hero that helped direct one of the most successful war operations in American history. So I'm glad to have a person of his caliber on our show today. So a lot of people don't realize that behind the scene we have these unknown heroes that provided great service to our country, and they're not recognized. So thank you, Stan, for your outstanding service and protecting our country. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you for all your listeners. And
Now,
listeners, please write your congressmen and senators and tell them you're unhappy about what the goals and objectives are for this war, and that the president must lay out what the goals and objectives are.
and I think each and every one of you in our listening audience, and it's time to gear up. We've seen some outstanding results in voting in terms of outreach in the recent election. We got to keep the momentum going because democracy is on the line. So start each day and prepare to vote in whatever state you're in, and try to encourage at least 10 other folks and have them encourage 10 other folks. We got to get our voter participation, particularly in the minority community, up to 80%. We're down in the low 40s or 30s, high 30s.
Yeah.
So make sure that you exercise your right to vote. So thank you everyone for listening to us today, and God bless and keep you until we talk once again. Take care.